not to say that Devin Brown's not going to get reps. I do think that he will. But I do think that it'll be more of, hey, the first team is going with Kyle, and then once their game's done, if it does get to that point, if it's close all game or, they don't look great and coach keeps them in, I think you're going to get a heavy, heavy dose of Kyle McCord on Saturday. And it will really show the fan base, like, this is our guy moving forward. This is our guy for Notre Dame, because that's what they have to do. They have to establish a guy this week because it's now time. It's go time now because you're staring down the barrel right after, Western Kentucky is the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how the schedule was put together this year. Thankfully, in my opinion, you didn't have to open the season against Notre Dame the way we did last year. Different kind of animal here. So you had these 3 games of ramping up for your first, big showing that everybody in the country is going to be paying attention to. And there's a lot of people around the country that are a little underwhelmed with Ohio State right now. In fact, the Buckeyes, they're not on some free fall, but they've slid each of the last 2 weeks now in the AP poll because other teams have looked really good and Ohio State's looked fine. I don't think fine is going to be good enough in 2 weeks when you're in South Bend. I think fine probably wins on Saturday. I'm not particularly concerned about Western Kentucky. In fact, their defense I don't think is all that good. So I don't think we should, see any problems with Ohio State scoring the ball. But, you got to find a way to use this game as a get-right game. And I'll tell you the other thing I really don't want to hear from Ryan Day, whether it relates to the quarterbacks or otherwise, is, the number of plays, because I think after really watching hard these last couple of games, I even asked this question in the postgame press conference to Emeka Egbuka, and he didn't seem to give me an answer that made me think they were unhappy with it. Ohio State's not playing with nearly as much tempo as I'm used to seeing from them, or as much as I expected. And I think some of the lack of number of plays that Ryan Day seems to be really bugged by, I think some of that is their own inefficiency and self-inflicted. So go out and be on like Death Star destroyer mode and try to put the Hilltoppers away early and put up a huge number. Like, that should be the goal, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think with the Hilltoppers too, with Western Kentucky, and we'll get into it later in the week, just kind of more in detail. This is one that's like, you don't want to call it a trap game, but it's like, all right, Notre Dame's on the horizon, and what's kind of what piques your interest with Western Kentucky is their ability to score and their ability to throw it because that can kind of keep you in the game. You look at some of the upsets that happen when, small level schools beat a bigger level school. It's, you have 1 or 2 guys who can go off and can compete on this level. Like, this isn't, don't get this twisted. This isn't Youngstown State walking level than Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is a Division I program. They're in the Conference USA. Like, they are not obviously on Ohio State's level, but this is one where it's like, this could look, I'm not saying Ohio State's going to lose or they should be on lose alert, but this could be one that's like, if you're not careful, it could be the third quarter and it's a 2-possession game just by no fault, just by not showing up and actually overlooking them. And then Western Kentucky coming out and, just backs to the wall. Hey, screw it. We're in the Ohio State. Let's go try and, do our best here. So this is one you don't want to overlook. And I agree with you. Like, I'm kind of over the hey, I don't like these new time rules and I don't like the clock rules, and the clock rules are costing us drives. Like, I don't know, man. There's a number of teams out there who haven't been affected by it and have adjusted. So they got to adjust. If the number of plays is a problem, speed up your process, speed up your in-between play process. If it's not a problem, which he keeps saying that it is, but it could also be part of the plan. Like, and that's fine too. But just like, hey, figure out kind of what your identity wants to be and then go be it. Just go do it. Hey, the clock rules are the clock rules for this year, regardless of what anybody says. Now go adjust to it and make the difference on your side.
Yeah, and the reality is Western Kentucky, like they've got some balance. They're not so keen on throwing the ball that they'll never run it. They've run it on average 24 times each of the first 2 games. They're about 2-to-1 pass to run. But I say that because I would be surprised if Western Kentucky completely changed its own offensive identity to play against Ohio State because they thought that gave them a substantially better chance to win the game, as opposed to Youngstown State had a game plan that just felt like bleeding the clock had to be part of what they wanted to do. And Indiana ran the triple option and did the same thing. So I'm sure on tape, the Hilltoppers are saying, hey, this is like the formula the teams have tried to use. And by the way, neither team got their doors blown off against the Bucks. So maybe that helps. But I don't know if their strengths line up with that philosophy. And so if they don't try to be the kind of team that wants to milk a bunch of clock against Ohio State, and if the Buckeyes play the way that they're capable of playing, maybe this does turn into a game that looks a little more normal against an inferior opponent.